The text came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, the same night I just wired another $18,500 mortgage payment. My mother's words glowed on my screen. "We've decided the beach villa would make the perfect wedding gift for Megan. You understand, sweetheart. You always do. 12 years, 144 payments. Over $2 million pulled from my savings. My dreams, my future for a house. Where I slept in the smallest guest room when I visited twice a year." My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone. But it wasn't rage trembling through me. It was something older, something I'd buried for 36 years without knowing it existed. Because 3 weeks later, I would uncover a secret my parents had hidden since the day I was born, a truth that explained every ignored birthday, every dismissed achievement, every time they looked at Megan like she was their miracle, and looked at me like I was an obligation. What they didn't expect, I'd find grandmother's letter first. "Have you ever discovered that the family you sacrificed everything for was never really yours at all?" My name is Chelsea Abbott. I'm 38 years old, a senior director of financial analysis at one of Boston's largest investment firms. On paper, I'm the definition of success, corner office, six-figure salary, the kind of career my younger self dreamed about. But that Tuesday evening, sitting in my rented one-bedroom apartment, I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. I had spent a decade building someone else's dream while my own life stood still. The mortgage payment had just cleared, $8,500, the same amount that left my account on the 15th of every month for the past 10 years. I did the math once during a sleepless night. Over $1 million, exposed like an open wound on a spreadsheet I'd never shown anyone. 10 years ago, my parents called with excitement in their voices. They'd founded their dream retirement home, a beautiful beach property listed at $1.8 million. The only problem, they couldn't qualify for the mortgage alone. But I could. I was 28, earning good money with a credit score that made loan officers smile. "Just co-sign for us, sweetheart," my mother had said. "We'll split everything 3 ways. It's for the whole family." For 2 years, they kept their word. Then the crises began. Year 3, my father's heart scare, that turned out to be acid reflux. Year 4, my mother's depression, that required an expensive wellness retreat. Year 6, unexpected medical bills that were never fully explained. Every year I told myself the same thing: just one more year of carrying this alone, then I'll set boundaries. Every year something happened to make that conversation impossible. What I didn't see then but see so clearly now is that nothing ever happened to them. Things only happened to my wallet. Because somehow during those same years of financial hardship, my parents found $35,000 for Megan's new car. They found tuition for her private university. They found $80,000 for her condo down payment. The money existed. It just never existed for me. The house has appreciated to $4.3 million now. I've paid for more than half of it. But when I visit twice a year, always fitting my schedule around Megan's plans, I sleep in the smallest guest room at the end of the hall. I've never chosen a single piece of furniture, never picked a paint color, never hung a photograph. And in 10 years of payments, my parents have never once looked me in the eye and said, "This is your house too." I should have seen the pattern. I'm a financial analyst, for God's sake, but there's a difference between analyzing numbers on a spreadsheet and analyzing the people you love. You want to believe the best. You want to trust. Scrolling through my phone that evening, I stopped on a photo Megan had posted her dress fitting at the beach house, my mother beaming beside her, sunlight streaming through windows I'd paid for. The comments were full of congratulations. No one mentioned me. No one ever did. I thought about grandmother then. 15 years ago in hospice, she had gripped my hand with surprising strength. "You look just like Helen," she'd whispered. I assumed she was confused, mistaking me for her daughter, who died young. But her next words were sharp, urgent. "There's a letter. Make sure you get the letter." She died 2 days later. When I asked my mother about the letter, she dismissed it. "Grandma was on heavy medication, sweetheart. She didn't know what she was saying." I'd accepted that explanation at 23. At 38, sitting alone in an apartment I rented because all my money went to a house I'd never owned, I wasn't so sure anymore. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. I opened it casually, expecting wedding updates or another request. Instead, I read it once, twice, 3 times. My coffee grew cold in my hands. The message wasn't meant for me. The message read, Lawyer says adding Megan's name to the deed just needs Chelsea's signature. Tell her it's for estate planning purposes. She won't question it, she never does. Once it's done, we can discuss full transfer after the wedding. Our girl deserves this fresh start. Our girl. Singular. Not our girls. I read those two words over and over until they burned into my memory. 10 years of mortgage payments. 10 years of sacrificed dreams and empty savings accounts. 10 years of believing I was helping my family, and the whole time they were counting on me being too trusting to ask questions. The money hurt, yes, but it wasn't the money that made my hands shake. It was that phrase, she won't question it, she never does. They knew exactly who I was. They had built their entire plan around my loyalty, my silence, my desperate need to be a good daughter. And they were right. For 10 years, they were absolutely right. I noticed something else in the message, a small line at the top I almost missed. Forwarded from Abbott Family Planning. I checked my phone, scrolling through every group chat I belonged to. There was no Abbott Family Planning. I wasn't in any group by that name. My family had a group chat about planning, and I wasn't in it. I called Megan that night. Not to confront her, I wasn't ready for that yet. I needed to test something first. I kept my voice light, casual. Hey, I got a weird text from Mom. Something about a family planning group. The silence on the other end lasted half a second too long. When Megan answered, her voice was too quick, too rehearsed. Oh, that's just Mom and Dad's estate stuff. Boring legal things. You know how they are. But I caught something beneath her words. Not confusion, fear. The specific fear of someone who's been caught off guard. My little sister knew about the group chat. She knew about the plan, and she was lying to my face. That weekend, I drove to my parents' house under the pretense of wedding planning. I smiled through brunch. I nodded at fabric samples and menu options. I played the role of the supportive older sister perfectly because I needed them to believe nothing had changed. And then when my mother left her phone on the kitchen counter to answer the front door, I had 90 seconds. My heart pounded so hard, I could hear it in my ears. I grabbed her phone, found the group chat, and started screenshotting everything I could. The messages went back 3 years. 3 years of planning. 3 years of lies. My father, 3 years ago, Megan's engaged soon. Time to start thinking about the house transfer. My mother, 2 years ago, Chelsea paid $102,000 this year without complaint. Let's keep it that way. And then Megan, my baby sister, who I had protected and supported her entire life 1 year ago. What if she wants the house eventually? My mother's reply made my stomach turn. She's not the marrying type, and she'll do what we ask. She always does. 6 months ago, my father wrote, "Remember, keep her happy until after the wedding." I heard footsteps approaching and quickly put the phone back. My mother returned with a smile. "Sorry about that, sweetheart. Now where were we?" I smiled back. "Just looking at the seating chart. It's going to be beautiful." That night alone in my apartment, I called Megan. This time I wasn't testing. I read the screenshots back to her word for word. There was silence on the line. Then her voice changed, not apologetic, not ashamed, but defensive, hard. "Why are you making this about you? I'm the one getting married. You have this amazing career, Chelsea. You travel. You don't need a beach house. I'm building a life, a real life with a husband and a family. And honestly, you had something I never did." I waited. "You had their pride," she continued, her voice rising. "Every accomplishment, every promotion, every award. It was always Chelsea did this, Chelsea did that. I grew up invisible in that house. So yes, I think I deserve one thing that's mine." Is that so terrible? I couldn't speak. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even embarrassed. In her mind, she was the victim. She had convinced herself that stealing a house I paid for with money I earned month after month, year after year, was somehow justice. "Megan," I said slowly, "I paid over $1 million for that house. And you can afford it," she shot back. "I can't. That's the difference." She hung up. I sat in the dark for a long time after that call. Something kept nagging at me over the following days. Grandmother's words from 15 years ago. "There's a letter. Make sure you get the letter." I had dismissed it as confusion, medication, an old woman's wandering mind. But now, with everything I knew, I wasn't so sure. On a hunch, I searched through old family emails, the ones forwarded to everyone whenever there was estate business to handle. I found one from a storage company dated 15 years ago. Prepaid storage unit number 247 in the name of Margaret Abbott Sr. has been paid through 2030. Grandmother had a storage unit. A storage unit no one ever mentioned. I called the company the next morning. As a family member with proper identification, I could access the unit. I drove there that Saturday, my hands gripping the steering wheel the entire way. The unit was small, filled with boxes of grandmother's personal items, photo albums, old jewelry, documents. And then I found it a folder labeled in grandmother's careful handwriting. For Chelsea to be given on her 21st birthday. I was 38 years old. No one had given me anything on my 21st birthday. Nothing from this folder, nothing from grandmother. My mother had told me the inheritance was divided equally. She had told me grandmother was confused at the end. She had told me there was no letter. Inside the folder was a sealed envelope yellowed with age. On the front in grandmother's handwriting, "For Chelsea when she's ready to know the truth about who she is and why I tried to protect her." Beneath the envelope were photographs. Old photographs, the kind with the white borders and slightly faded colors. A young woman with auburn hair, my auburn hair holding an infant. I turned the photo over. On the back in faded ink, Helen and baby girl, March 1986. March 1986, my birth month, my birth year. The woman in the photograph wasn't a stranger. She had my hair, my eyes, my smile, and she was holding me. With trembling fingers, I opened my grandmother's letter. The paper was thin, fragile, the handwriting shaky but clear. The first line read, "My darling Chelsea, the woman you call mother is not your mother. Your real mother was my daughter Helen, and she loved you more than you will ever know." I read those words again and again, until they stopped making sense, until they became just shapes on paper. Then I read the rest of the letter, and my entire life collapsed into pieces around me. "My darling Chelsea," grandmother had written, "if you're reading this, I have failed you. I didn't live long enough to tell you in person, as I planned to on your 21st birthday. Your mother, your real mother, was my youngest daughter, Helen. She was bright, artistic, passionate, and at 22, she fell in love with the wrong man. He was her professor. He was married. When she became pregnant with you, our family saw only scandal. Your Aunt Margaret, the woman you call mother, offered to adopt you. I was grateful at the time. I didn't know she would erase Helen entirely. Helen died in a car accident when you were 8 months old. Some days I wonder if the shame we heaped on her contributed to her recklessness that night. I will carry that guilt to my grave. What you must know, I have asked Margaret to give you the larger share of my estate to compensate however inadequately for the mother you lost. This letter explains my wishes. I have left a copy with your great-aunt Evelyn, whom your parents have likely taught you to distrust. Find Evelyn. She has the proof. She has your mother's things. She has the truth. I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. I'm sorry I let them silence me. But know this: Helen loved you. She fought for you. She chose you. And you, my dear, are so very much her daughter. With all my love, grandmother." I sat on the cold concrete floor of that storage unit for over an hour. The woman I called mother was my aunt. The sister I thought I had was my cousin. The family I had sacrificed everything for had stolen my identity, my inheritance, and my history. Every time they called me daughter, they were lying. Every time they asked me for money, they knew exactly what they had taken from me. I looked at the photograph of Helen again, young, beautiful, holding me like I was precious. She had my auburn hair, my smile. The features I always thought were genetic accidents were actually my mother's gifts to me. And I never knew her. I was 8 months old when she died. I had no memories of her voice, her laugh, her touch. They had taken that from me too. The letter mentioned Great-Aunt Evelyn. I remembered her vaguely from childhood, a woman my parents spoke about in hushed, disapproving tones. "She's mentally unstable," my mother always said. "She makes up stories. Don't believe anything she tells you." I had avoided Evelyn my entire adult life based on those warnings. Now I understood why. Evelyn knew the truth. At the bottom of grandmother's letter was a phone number. My hands trembled as I dialed. The phone rang 4 times before an elderly woman answered. "Hello." I took a deep breath. "This is Chelsea Abbott, Margaret's daughter, or rather, Helen's daughter." The silence on the other end stretched for what felt like forever. Then I heard her voice crack. "I've been waiting for this call for 38 years. Evelyn told me everything. She spoke for over 2 hours, filling in every gap, every lie, every stolen piece of my history. Helen had gotten pregnant by Dr. Richard Thornton, a married professor at her university who refused to leave his wife. The Abbott family, devout Catholics concerned with appearances above all else, couldn't bear the scandal. When Helen died in that car accident, they saw an opportunity. They could fix everything by pretending I was Margaret's biological daughter. A clean slate, no scandal, no unwed mother, just a neat, acceptable story. Evelyn had protested. She had argued that I deserved to know the truth, that Helen deserved to be remembered. For her trouble, she was labeled mentally unstable and cut off from the family entirely. I tried to reach you for years, Evelyn said, her voice heavy with old grief. I sent letters when you turned 18. They were all returned unopened. When you were 21, I tried to visit you at college. Your mother threatened a restraining order. She told me if I ever contacted you, she would have me arrested. I closed my eyes. 21, the birthday when grandmother had wanted to tell me the truth. The birthday when Evelyn had tried to reach me. The birthday when I received nothing from that storage unit. There's more, Evelyn continued. Your grandmother's letter of wishes was clear. You were to receive $180,000 plus her jewelry collection. Your mother claimed you received your fair share of $25,000 and that the rest was divided equally among the grandchildren. I have a copy of what the letter actually said, Chelsea. They stole over $150,000 from you, and they've been lying about it ever since. The week that followed was the hardest of my life. The first night I couldn't sleep. I read grandmother's letter until I had memorized every word, until Helen's name felt familiar in my mouth. I stared at the photographs until the young woman with auburn hair felt less like a stranger and more like someone I had always known, but couldn't quite remember. Days 2 and 3 brought cold rage. I sat at my desk and calculated everything I had lost. $155,000 in stolen inheritance, over $1 million in mortgage payments for a house they planned to give away. 38 years of my identity, my history, my mother's memory, all erased to protect their reputation. Days 4 and 5, the grief arrived. Not for Margaret and Richard, the people I had called parents. I grieved for Helen, for grandmother, for the life I was never allowed to know. I grieved for the little girl who spent decades trying to earn love from people who saw her as an obligation, a secret to be managed, a source of money to be exploited. And then on days 6 and 7, something unexpected happened. Clarity. I wasn't broken. I was finally understanding why I had never felt like I fully belonged. Why my accomplishments were never celebrated the way Megan's smallest achievements were praised. Why I was always the one asked to sacrifice to wait to understand. It wasn't my failure. It was their design. I was never meant to belong. I was only ever meant to be useful. A package arrived from Evelyn. Inside was Helen's bracelet, a delicate silver chain that Evelyn had kept for 38 years. Helen gave it to me before the accident. Evelyn's note explained. She said, "Keep this for my baby in case anything happens to me." She knew. Somehow she knew. There was also Helen's journal. I read her entries slowly, savoring each word in her handwriting. One entry written while she was pregnant with me made me weep. "My little one, they want me to give you up. I won't. Whatever happens, know that you were wanted. You were fought for. You were loved." At the bottom of the package was my original birth certificate. Mother Helen Marie Abbott. I finally had proof. Someone had chosen me unconditionally. Someone had fought for me. And even though I never knew her, even though I had no memories of her face or voice, I understood now that I carried her with me in every feature, every stubborn impulse, every moment of strength. I met with 2 lawyers the following week. The real estate attorney confirmed what I already suspected. I was the sole legal owner of the beach house. My name was on the title. My name was on the mortgage. No one could add another name without my signature. I could legally issue a notice to terminate occupancy with 60 days' notice. The estate attorney was less optimistic about the inheritance. Grandmother's letter of wishes combined with Evelyn's testimony might support a civil case. But after 15 years, the statute of limitations was murky. I made my decision quickly. I wouldn't sue for the inheritance. I refused to spend years in courtrooms giving these people more of my time and energy. But I would reclaim what was legally unambiguously mine. The beach house, the house I had paid for, the house they were planning to steal. I requested one document from my real estate attorney, a formal notice to terminate occupancy, Effective 60 days from receipt. The following Monday, a courier knocked on the door of the Abbott Beach Villa. My mother answered confused and signed for the certified envelope. Inside, she found no accusation, no explanation, no angry letter, just a legal notice, a 60-day deadline, and my signature at the bottom. Their 10-year plan was about to collapse on itself. The phone calls started within hours. My mother's voice filled my voicemail with a progression of emotions I had never heard from her before. Day one brought outrage. How could you do this to your family? After everything we've done for you. We raised you, Chelsea. We gave you a home, and this is how you repay us. I listened to that message 3 times, marveling at the audacity, everything they had done for me. They had stolen my identity, my inheritance, and my mother's memory. They had used me as a personal bank account for a decade. And somehow in their minds, I was the ungrateful one. I didn't respond. The legal notice I had sent was deliberately cold and professional. It stated that I, Chelsea Abbott, as sole title holder of the property, was exercising my legal right to terminate the current occupancy arrangement. Current occupants were required to vacate within 60 days of receipt. The alternative was clearly outlined. They could sign a formal lease agreement at $8,500 per month, the exact amount I had been paying alone for 10 years. The document also included a warning that any attempt to forge signatures, manipulate property records, or interfere with the owner's rights would be reported to the appropriate authorities. I wanted them to understand that I knew everything. I had documentation, and I was not bluffing. By day 3, my mother's tone shifted from outrage to guilt. Her voicemail was softer, more calculated. Chelsea, I'm sorry about Helen. I should have told you. We should have told you years ago. Please, let's talk. Let's sit down as a family and work through this. I noticed she didn't specify what she was sorry for. She didn't mention the money. She didn't mention the group chat. She didn't mention the plan to steal the house. Just a vague apology about Helen, the safest thing to apologize, for the thing that happened 38 years ago and couldn't be undone. I didn't respond. Day 5 brought threats. You'll regret this, Chelsea. You're throwing away your entire family over money. Is that really who you want to be? Someone who destroys relationships for property? I almost laughed at that one. I was throwing away my family over money. Not them, me, the person who had paid over $1 million while they plotted behind my back. I was the one being materialistic. The manipulation was so transparent now that I had seen it for what it was. I didn't respond. By day 7, she was begging. What do you want? Just tell me what you want. Name your price. We can work something out. Please, Chelsea. Please. I responded once via text. I typed the words carefully, reading them 3 times before hitting send. You had 38 years to tell me the truth. You had 15 years to honor grandmother's wishes. You had 10 years to treat me like family instead of an ATM. There is no working something out. I blocked her number after that. My father tried a different approach. He called with his calm, reasonable voice, the tone he used when he wanted to seem like the rational adult in the room. Chelsea, I understand you're upset. This is emotional, but let's sit down like adults and find a middle ground. There's no reason we can't work through this together. I let him finish before I spoke. You mean like the middle ground where I paid $1 million for a house you were secretly planning to give to Megan? Silence. Then, that's not how it was. We always intended to make sure you were taken care of. I cut him off. You intended to keep me paying until the wedding, then ask for my signature under false pretenses. Estate planning purposes. That's what the text said. I've seen the group chat, Dad, all 3 years of it. Dead silence. He didn't argue. He didn't explain. He simply hung up without another word. That silence told me everything. He had no defense because there was no defense. Megan called that night crying. You're ruining my wedding, Chelsea. Do you understand that my wedding, the most important day of my life, and you're making it about you? How can you be so selfish? I let her cry for a moment before responding. You knew Megan. For 3 years you sat in that group chat while they planned to take what I paid for. You asked what would happen if I wanted the house eventually. You were part of this from the beginning. You're not a victim. You're a co-conspirator. The crying stopped abruptly. When she spoke again, her voice was cold and hard. You know what, fine. You want to be alone forever, that's on you. Mom and Dad chose me. They've always chosen me. Because I'm their real daughter. The words hung in the air between us. I let the silence stretch before I responded. Actually, neither of us is their real daughter in the way you think. But you're right about one thing: they chose you, and now I'm choosing myself. Goodbye, Megan." I hung up before she could respond. The truth spread faster than I expected. It started with a text from a cousin I barely knew. She had heard I wasn't attending the pre-wedding gathering and wanted to know if everything was okay with your family's beach house. I responded honestly, "That house is in my name. I've paid the mortgage for 10 years. My parents will be moving out soon." Within days, the whisper network of our large Catholic family had done its work. That cousin told another cousin. That cousin told an aunt. And then the older generation, the ones who had been around when Helen was alive, started speaking up. Great Uncle Bernard, 89 years old and sharp as ever, apparently told anyone who would listen. About time that poor girl found out. What Margaret did to Helen's memory was shameful. Great Aunt Patricia admitted she had always wondered why I looked so much like Helen. Margaret told us it was just coincidence. We should have known better. By wedding week, the secret that had been buried for 38 years was no longer secret. The carefully constructed reputation my parents had built, the devoted Catholic family, the loving parents, the generous community members, fell apart in days. People who had admired them now looked at them with different eyes. Some relatives reached out to me directly, offering support and apologies for not seeing the truth sooner. Others confronted my parents at church, at the grocery store, at the final wedding preparations. 1 week before the wedding, my mother sent a long email. It was carefully crafted, every word chosen for maximum effect. "Dear Chelsea, I am sorry for everything. We should have told you about Helen. We should have honored Mother's wishes. We made mistakes, and I understand if you're angry. I only hope that someday we can be a family again." I read it twice, analyzing it the way I would analyze a financial report. I noticed what was missing. There was no acknowledgement of the 10-year mortgage scheme, no mention of the group chat or the planned deception, no specific accountability, just vague mistakes. No offer to repay what they had taken from me. This wasn't an apology. This was a public relations statement. It was designed to look good if I ever showed it to anyone. It was designed to make her seem reasonable and me seem vindictive. I forwarded the email to my lawyer without response. The wedding was now 1 week away. Every relative, every family friend, every member of their church community would be watching. The question on everyone's lips was the same. Would Chelsea Abbott show up to face the family that had lied to her for 38 years? And if she did, what would happen next? I did not attend the wedding, not because I was bitter, not because I wanted to make a scene or prove a point. I simply had nothing left to prove. There was no performance to give, no role to play, no family to pretend I belonged to. On the day my cousin married her fiancé in a hotel ballroom, instead of the beach villa she had expected, I drove to Vermont. Evelyn met me at her small cottage with tears in her eyes and arms open wide. We spent the morning looking through photo albums of Helen, my mother, my real mother. And in the afternoon, we drove 2 hours to a cemetery I never knew existed. Helen's grave was a small headstone in a quiet corner shaded by an old oak tree. I had grown up less than 2 hours from this place and never knew my mother was buried here. No one had ever taken me. No one had ever told me. I knelt in front of the headstone and placed the flowers I had brought. White lilies. Evelyn told me they were Helen's favorite. I had written a letter the night before, and I read it aloud, my voice shaking. "Mom, I finally know who I am. I finally know you fought for me. I'm sorry we never got to meet. I'm sorry I didn't know your name until I was 38 years old. But I want you to know I'm fighting for myself now, just like you would have wanted, just like you did for me." Evelyn held my hand as I cried. These weren't tears of sadness, not exactly. They were tears of release. I was mourning a mother I never knew, and finding a family I had always had. When we drove back to Evelyn's cottage that evening, I felt lighter than I had in 38 years. The 60-day notice expired 1 week after the wedding. My parents had to vacate the beach house, the house they had lived in for a decade, the house they had treated as their own while I paid every bill. They moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in a mid-tier complex on the other side of town. For the first time in 10 years, they had to live within their actual means. The church community they had cultivated for 4 decades now viewed them with suspicion. The whispers didn't stop. Several relatives had stopped speaking to them entirely. Others reached out to me directly, apologizing for not seeing the truth sooner, for believing the lies they had been told about Aunt Evelyn, for not questioning why I looked so much like Helen. Without my $8,500 every month, financial reality hit them hard. My father took a part-time consulting job to make ends meet. My mother at 66 went back to work for the first time in 20 years. I felt no satisfaction in their struggle, but I felt no guilt either. They had built their comfortable life on my sacrifice. Now they would have to build something of their own. 6 months later, they attempted contact. My mother sent a letter, a real one this time, with specific acknowledgments of what they had done. She admitted to hiding the truth about Helen. She admitted to keeping grandmother's letter from me. She admitted finally that she had been wrong. My father left a voicemail, his voice breaking as he spoke. He said he was sorry. He said he missed me. He said he hoped someday I could forgive him. I read the letter, I listened to the voicemail, and I decided I wasn't ready. I might never be. I responded with 3 sentences. I received your messages. I'm not prepared to reconnect. If that changes, I will reach out. They had lost the daughter who would have done anything for them. They did it to themselves. Megan's wedding happened, but it wasn't the fairy tale she had imagined. The venue was a hotel ballroom, not the stunning beach villa she had expected. Whispers circulated among the guests. Everyone knew something had happened, even if they didn't know all the details. Her new husband, Derek, overheard enough to start asking questions. The $1 million wedding gift never materialized. 3 months after the wedding, Megan called me. Her voice was different, less entitled, more uncertain. "I've been thinking," she said. "We're still sisters, right? Maybe I was wrong about some things." I let the silence stretch before I responded. "We're cousins, actually. And I wish you well, Megan. I genuinely hope you find happiness. But I'm not interested in a relationship with someone who spent 3 years planning to take what I built. I hope your marriage is everything you want it to be, but I won't be part of your life." I hung up before she could argue. For the first time in her life, Megan would have to build something without someone else's money, someone else's sacrifice, someone else's blind support. Her marriage survived the revelation, but Derek now watched his in-laws differently. Trust once broken casts a long shadow. I transformed the beach house into something meaningful. I hired a property management company and converted it into a premium vacation rental. After expenses and the mortgage payment, it generates enough profit to fund something I'm proud of: the Helen Abbott Memorial Scholarship. 15% of the rental income goes to educational grants for young adults who aged out of foster care or were adopted. The house that was meant to be stolen from me now funds opportunities for others who were also cast aside. Every guest who stays there sees a small plaque in the entryway. This home is dedicated to the memory of Helen Abbott, 1963 to 1987, a mother whose love outlasted her life. I finally bought my own apartment, a bright modern space in the city that's entirely mine. I decorated it exactly how I wanted. No small guest room for family who never appreciated me. No accommodating anyone else's preferences. Just my taste, my choices, my life. I built a genuine relationship with Evelyn: weekly video calls, holiday visits, a late-blooming but deep family connection based on truth rather than obligation. I joined a support group for late discovery adoptees, and for the first time, I was surrounded by people who understood what it meant to rebuild your identity in your 30s. I started therapy not because I'm broken, but because 38 years of conditioning don't undo themselves overnight. 6 months after everything fell apart, a colleague introduced me to someone. His name is Marcus. It's early, just coffee and conversation and the tentative beginnings of something. But it feels different than anything before. I'm not performing the role of the responsible daughter anymore. I'm just Chelsea. I haven't completely cut off my adoptive parents. I send birthday cards, brief holiday messages, civility without intimacy. When my mother attempts deeper conversation, I keep it short. "I hope you're well. I'm doing fine. Take care." I have forgiven them not for their sake, but for mine. Carrying anger would mean they still control me. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Trust once systematically destroyed doesn't regenerate on demand. People ask me sometimes if I'll ever truly reconcile with them. My answer is always the same. I don't wish them harm. But I spent 38 years trying to earn a place in a family that was never going to give me one. I was auditioning for a role I could never win because the role itself was a lie. I'm done auditioning. I have a family now. Evelyn, the friends who stuck by me, the community I'm building. People who know exactly who I am and chose me anyway, that's enough. That's more than enough. For 10 years, I paid $8,500 a month for a house I was never supposed to keep. For 38 years, I performed the role of the good daughter for people who saw me as a resource, not a child. I thought sacrifice would earn me love. I thought loyalty would earn me belonging. I believed that if I just gave enough, they would finally see me. I was the mark in a con I didn't know existed. But here's what they didn't count on: the same strength they exploited to fund their scheme, I used to dismantle everything they built. My mother. My real mother. Helen, she fought for me when everyone told her not to. She chose me. And now finally, I understand what that means. The beach villa is not their retirement dream anymore. It's not Meghan's wedding gift. It's Helen Abbott's legacy funding futures for people who were thrown away just like I almost was. They spent 10 years taking everything from me. It took me 10 weeks to take it all back. And for the first time in 38 years, Chelsea Abbott stopped trying to be chosen. She chose herself. Chelsea's story reminds us of something we often forget: love should never come with a price tag. When family members treat your sacrifices as expectations rather than gifts, when your generosity is met with demands instead of gratitude, that is not love. That is exploitation wearing a family mask. If you recognized yourself in Chelsea's journey, if you have ever felt like the one who gives everything while receiving nothing, if you have ever wondered why your accomplishments are overlooked while others are celebrated for far less, please hear this. Your worth is not measured by what you provide. You are not an ATM. You are not a backup plan. You are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. The hardest lesson Chelsea learned was that some people will never see your value no matter how much you sacrifice. And that is not your failure. It is theirs. You cannot earn love from people who have already decided you don't deserve it. What you can do is stop auditioning for a role you were never meant to play. Setting boundaries is not selfish. Walking away from people who hurt you is not cruel. Protecting your peace is not betrayal. These are acts of self-respect, and you deserve to treat yourself with the same kindness you so freely give to others. Chelsea's story also teaches us to question the narratives we inherit. The secrets families keep, the stories they tell, the roles they assign, these are not always truth. Sometimes the black sheep is simply the one who refused to stay silent. Sometimes the difficult relative is the only one brave enough to speak honestly. Pay attention to the people your family warns you against. They might be the ones with answers you need. Most importantly, remember this: it is never too late to choose yourself. Chelsea was 38 when she discovered the truth. She was 38 when she finally stopped trying to earn a place at a table that was never set for her. Your story can change at any age. Your worth can be reclaimed at any moment. The only deadline is the one you set for yourself. Thank you for listening to Chelsea's story today. If her journey resonated with you, if it made you think about your own relationships and boundaries, I would love to hear from you. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever experienced something similar? Have you ever had to walk away from family to find yourself? Your story matters, and this community is here to listen. If you found value in this video, please subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Every subscription helps us continue sharing stories of strength, survival, and self-discovery. Until next time, remember, you are worthy of love that doesn't cost you everything. You always were.